Hey there, this is Tim, and I have a question for you today about cartridges and fountain pens. Are they great? Are they awful? Now, I'm a big fan of piston filling fountain pens myself, but does that mean that cartridge fountain pens have no place? Of course not. All of these pens are cartridge or cartridge converter pens, and these are some of my favorite pens. Are there advantages to cartridge fountain pens? Yes. Are there disadvantages to cartridge fountain pens? Yes. But let's dive in and take a look, and we'll look at both sides of the cartridge fountain pen equation, and you decide. There are at least 5 advantages to cartridge fountain pens. First is ease of use. You take the cartridge, you put it in the end of the nib section, give it a press, and you're good to go. Now, occasionally, you might need to give the cartridge a gentle squeeze to get it going. It's not always the case and it's not always necessary, but it can help sometimes if the fountain pen doesn't want to write immediately after you put the cartridge in. And when the cartridge is empty, you simply remove it, throw it away, put a new one in, and again, you're good to go. A second advantage to cartridge pens is the ease of cleaning. To clean a cartridge fountain pen, all you need is some of this and maybe one of these. Run clean water through the nib section until it is clear, let it dry, put a new cartridge in, and start writing. And although you should clean your fountain pens on a regular basis, if you aren't changing ink colors, you don't have to clean it between every cartridge. Another advantage to cartridge fountain pens is that it is a relatively small ink commitment, especially if your fountain pen uses international cartridges and you've installed a short one like I have in this pen. It won't last for months of writing, so when the cartridge runs out of ink, you swap it in perhaps for a different color in a shorter amount of time, and it can be a lot of fun. Another advantage to cartridge fountain pens is that it is very low friction. For the most part, it just works. You install the cartridge, you screw the barrel back onto the nib section, and start writing. It's as simple as that. They just work. Until they don't, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a rare thing. And if you're using a reputable cartridge from a reputable pen manufacturer, most of the time, it's just going to work. It's a great advantage. And what about that running out of ink problem? No problem. If you're using a cartridge fountain pen, carrying around spare cartridges is easy, even in a backpack or a bag. A whole lot easier than carrying around bottled ink. And if you're writing with one of these, you're going to need to fill it pretty often. Now let's talk about a few of the disadvantages of cartridges and fountain pens. First, there are standards for cartridges. Only there aren't standards. Except that there are standards. What? Let me explain what I mean. If your fountain pen uses an international standard cartridge, like this Retro 51 Apollo, then you can purchase an international short or an international long cartridge. And as long as that's what you're purchasing, it should work in this fountain pen. So great, right? Done. Only no. That's when standards aren't standards. You see, LAMY make their own cartridges, and Platinum make their own cartridges, and Pilot make their own cartridges, and Pelican make their own cartridges, and Sailor has their own cartridges. It's kind of like the wild, wild west in a world where we have standards, even international short and international long fountain pen cartridges. Most manufacturers have chosen to produce their own. Now, there are some good reasons for that, but what you need to know is it is very likely that the fountain pen you're purchasing is going to use a proprietary cartridge. One more disadvantage of cartridge fountain pens is that on very rare occasions, the cartridge can be dry out of the box. Like I said, it's rare, but it does happen. A cartridge fountain pen can also experience very hard starts. In my experience, this is quite rare, and it's usually associated with a particular cartridge type, and usually when you haven't written with the pen for several days. Will it ever write? Yes, usually. Remember that squeeze tactic we talked about before? That can sometimes really help. Or simply just writing with the pen until the ink begins to flow again. And finally, the colors for cartridge fountain pens is quite limited. But LAMY, for instance, makes beautiful fountain pen cartridge colors. And I would put LAMY's blue-black fountain pen cartridge up against some of my favorite blue-black bottled inks. Platinum has a beautiful one too. And besides, sometimes many choices is too many choices. Do you know what I mean? So narrowing your choices sometimes makes it easier to decide which color you want to try. So, are cartridge fountain pens a worthy option? Of course they are. Like I said earlier in the video, some of my very favorite fountain pens are cartridge or cartridge converter fountain pens. And what about that converter? We're going to talk about that in a future video. Spoiler alert, I love them. So thank you for watching this video and spending time with me today. If you aren't already a subscriber, please consider doing that and click on that little bell so you'll be notified when we publish new videos. This is Tim with Truphae. As always, happy writing and remember to be Inkredible. Finally, the color options for cartridges is really quite limited, but companies like LAMY make beautiful cartridge fountain pen colors. In fact, I would put LAMY's blue back. This is Tim with Truphae. As always, happy writing and remember to be Inkredible.